When Rudyard Kipling's The Jungle Book is examined through Antonio Gramsci's concepts of hegemony and counter-hegemony, it becomes clear that beneath its appearance as a children's book lies a deep structure that reflects class hierarchy, power relations, and cultural domination. The connection between the story and Gramsci's theory can be structurally explained as follows. Gramsci's key concept: hegemony, cultural supremacy. According to Gramsci, hegemony is not sustained by economic or political power alone, but also through cultural and ideological tools. It is established when dominant ideas are accepted as natural or common sense by the masses. Counter-hegemony. This refers to the development of alternative systems of thought, values, and ways of life that challenge dominant ideologies. Through such efforts, the oppressed classes can resist and disrupt the existing power structure. Traces of hegemony in the Jungle Book. 1. The law of the jungle and the naturalization of class order. The law of the jungle, taught to Mowgli by Baloo, operates very much like Gramsci's concept of hegemony. These rules are presented as natural, yet they serve to preserve a particular order and balance of power. All animals are expected to follow these laws. This structure is presented as part of nature's order, but in fact, it reflects a hegemonic system. Interpretation. These laws legitimize power relations within the jungle. Figures like Akela are accepted as natural leaders, while the monkeys, Bandar-log, who reject the order, are portrayed as anarchic and inferior. This narrative reinforces the idea that the current system is the only valid one, a classic case of cultural hegemony. 2. Mowgli as a symbol of civilization. The white man's burden. Mowgli enters the jungle as an outsider, a human, and gradually finds his place by adapting to the jungle's rules. However, he ultimately leaves and returns to the human world. This storyline parallels the colonial ideology of the West, especially Britain, and its so-called civilizing mission in colonies like India. Gramscian reading. Mowgli becomes a carrier of cultural hegemony. Even within the wilderness, it is the human, especially the Western human, who defines the norms. This presents a narrative that glorifies Western cultural supremacy. 3. Bandar-log. Counter-hegemonic but ineffective. The monkey community lives chaotically, refusing to follow any rules. Other animals do not take them seriously and look down on them. While they appear as outsiders to the system, they do not offer a real counter-hegemonic alternative. Instead, they serve as a caricatured threat, reinforcing the idea of how necessary the dominant order is. Interpretation. The monkeys fail to produce a viable alternative. As a result, the story repeatedly justifies the legitimacy of the hegemonic order. Conclusion. Constructing and legitimizing hegemony. When read through the lens of Gramsci's theories, Kipling's The Jungle Book reveals that the jungle's order is presented as natural and unchangeable, just like class structures in society. Hegemony. Alternatives, like the monkeys or Shere Khan's individualism, are either ridiculed or portrayed as failures. Counter-hegemony is suppressed. Mowgli is raised within the system and ultimately contributes to its civilizing mission, making him the ideal subject of hegemonic ideology. 1. Counter-hegemony. According to Gramsci, counter-hegemony refers to alternative worldviews developed in opposition to the existing dominant cultural and ideological structures. It involves a conscious process of resisting the internalization of domination. In the Jungle Book, the Bandar-log, monkeys, reject the rules of the jungle. However, their opposition is unorganized, lacks collective ideology, and is portrayed as humorous or chaotic. This is not true counter-hegemony. Rather, it is a caricature that delegitimizes any alternative and reinforces the dominant order. This supports Gramsci's argument that counter-hegemony must go beyond rejection. It must generate coherent cultural alternatives. 2. Passive revolution. Passive revolution refers to superficial changes made to absorb the demands of the people into the system, thereby preventing radical transformation and maintaining the status quo. In the Jungle Book, Mowgli's adaptation to the jungle, his symbolic civilizing of nature, and his eventual return to the human world can be read as an example of passive revolution. The divide between the jungle and human society is never fundamentally challenged. Mowgli's return signifies the restoration of order rather than its transformation. Mowgli's personal journey does not question the structure of the jungle. Instead, it reflects system-conforming adaptation. 3. Historical bloc. A historical bloc is a coalition of economic, political, and cultural forces constructed by the ruling class to sustain its power. In the Jungle Book, the order of the jungle, Akela, Baloo, Bagheera, etc., appears as a natural alliance that protects the jungle from chaos. This bloc unites to defend itself against threats like Shere Khan and incorporates Mowgli to maintain order. This supports Gramsci's idea that hegemony is not maintained by force alone but through consent-based coalitions. 4. Class fractions. Gramsci emphasizes that the ruling class is not homogeneous, but composed of different interest groups, fractions. Hegemony requires reconciling these internal divisions. In the Jungle Book, different species occupy different roles in the jungle: wolves, panther, bear, tiger, monkeys. Each represents different interests and natural traits. The wolves embody collectivism. Shere Khan seeks to rule through individual power. Baloo represents education and discipline. These internal tensions reflect Gramsci's idea of balancing class fractions through hegemonic unity. 5. Disciplined organization. For counter-hegemony to succeed, Gramsci argues that a well-structured organization led by organic intellectuals is essential. In the Jungle Book, the monkey's lack of organization and Shere Khan's individualism both lead to failure. However, characters like Baloo and Bagheera, who serve as organic intellectuals, guide Mowgli to adapt to the jungle's rules. The role of discipline and educational figures like Baloo reflects Gramsci's notion that cultural transformation requires organized consciousness. 6. Role of civil society. According to Gramsci, civil society appears independent from the state's direct control, yet it is the sphere in which hegemonic values are produced and internalized, through institutions like schools, religion, family, and media. In the Jungle Book, the jungle functions as a form of natural, civil society, where norms and educational mechanisms, Baloo's teaching, Akela's leadership, produce cultural codes. Mowgli becomes socialized within this community and internalizes jungle culture. The jungle community acts as a civil society scene where hegemonic values are transmitted. Conclusion. Applying Gramsci to Kipling. Kipling's The Jungle Book serves as a rich example for analyzing Gramsci's theories of cultural power, consent production, and hegemony, the naturalization of dominant ideology, the law of the jungle, the caricaturization of counter-hegemony, Bandar log, the restoration of order through passive revolution, Mowgli's journey, the role of civil society in maintaining hegemony, education and norm transmission. This analysis reveals how even a seemingly innocent children's book reflects and reinforces deep ideological structures.